I saw the video. Daniel's voice wasn't loud, but it hit like a car crash. My laugh died in my throat. A second earlier, I'd been smirking, leaning against the kitchen island, still tasting the last of the cheap red wine we'd opened with dinner. "Oh, come on," I'd said, rolling my eyes. "You're just jealous of Noah again. My God, Daniel, he's practically a golden retriever with a driver's license. Relax." I meant it as a joke. A little jab. The kind we'd traded for years. But he didn't smile. He didn't say anything at all. He just stood there, near the front door, fingers white around the handle of his suitcase. His shoulders were tight, like a drawn bowstring. His eyes, usually this soft, steady hazel, looked wrong. Darker. Flat. "Daniel," I said, a nervous laugh bubbling up because the silence was starting to scare me. "Hey. It was a joke. Don't be dramatic. Put the suitcase down." He swallowed, throat bobbing, and when he spoke again, his voice sounded shredded. Like it hurt just to get the words out. "I saw the video, Emma." The mug in my hand slipped. It hit the counter, clanged, and then rolled, spilling a crescent of coffee across the marble. I didn't move to stop it. His words pinned me in place. What video?" My mouth was dry. I knew I sounded guilty. It was like my body had decided before my brain could catch up. He let out a short, humorless breath. "Don't," he said. "Please don't insult me like that, not on my way out the door." My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. This was wrong. This was upside down. "On your way where?" I asked, hating the little shake in my voice. He blinked slowly, like he was trying not to cry. Like he'd already cried and had nothing left. "Away," he said. "Anywhere that isn't here. Anywhere that isn't this." He gestured around us with a sharp, helpless sweep of his hand. The kitchen, the house, our framed wedding photo on the wall, our lives. Whatever this is now. I pushed myself off the island, forcing my legs to move. My sock caught in the small puddle of coffee and slid a little on the tile. Everything felt slightly off, like the world had been tilted 3 degrees to the left. "You're scaring me," I said, stepping closer. "What are you talking about? What video?" "From 2 weeks ago," he said. "That bar. The booth by the window. You. Noah." The air left my lungs. The booth. The rain. The taste of whiskey. Noah's hand too close to mine. The moment that I'd relabeled in my head as stupid and nothing and a misunderstanding until it blurred at the edges. Until it didn't sit like a jagged stone in my stomach anymore. Except apparently it still looked sharp enough on camera. "You're overreacting," I said quickly, words tripping over each other. "If someone recorded something, it's out of context, okay? You know how it is with cameras and angles and..." His jaw clenched. "I watched it 40 times, he said quietly. "There is no context that makes what I saw okay." I opened my mouth and then closed it again. Panic shoved at my ribs from the inside. I hadn't cheated. I hadn't. Not really. Not the way that word meant in my head. There hadn't been a decision, a line crossed in daylight with full awareness. It was a blur, a mistake, something I'd pulled back from. "Daniel, I didn't," my voice cracked. "Please, just put the bag down and we can talk about it. I've been trying to talk about it for months." The calm in his tone was somehow worse than yelling. "Every time I brought up Noah, you treated me like I was crazy. Like I was insecure. Like I was less." I flinched. Because it was true. Because the memory flashed in my mind. Me snorting, smirking, tossing out, "You're just jealous of my best friend, babe. It's kind of cute, actually." "I'm not crazy," he said. "And I'm not jealous. I'm just done." The click of the suitcase handle collapsing sounded like a final verdict. As he turned toward the door, the mug finally rolled off the edge of the counter and shattered on the floor. The sound made me jump. Our whole life sounded like that in my head, ceramic splitting on tile. "Daniel," I whispered. He opened the door. Cold night air slipped in, brushing the bare skin of my arms, making me suddenly aware of the thinness of my t-shirt, the way the house behind me was warm and lived in and full of ghosts. Don't go, I said. The words came out raw. Please. Just tell me everything. Start from the beginning. I swear, I will listen this time. He paused in the doorway. For a heartbeat, I thought I'd reached him. But when he looked back at me, his eyes were empty in a way I'd never seen before. Not angry. Not broken. Just done. You want the beginning? He asked. The beginning was a year ago, when I started to feel like a guest in my own marriage and you kept saying I was imagining it. He stepped out into the hall. The suitcase wheels whispered over the carpet. The beginning, he continued, not looking at me now, was Noah. 3 months earlier. Noah has always been the person I could breathe around. He's tall and messy and sarcastic in a way that gets under people's skin if they don't know him. But I've known him since we were 19 and broke and eating cereal out of measuring cups in a crappy dorm kitchen. He's the first person I texted when I got the job at the marketing firm. The first person who saw my wedding dress before my mom did. Relax, I told Daniel, the first time he met Noah. He's practically my brother. I know now that practically is a dangerous word. The first time I really noticed Daniel's jealousy was at our friend Maya's birthday party last spring. The bar was loud and hot, bodies pressed together, the air smelling like spilled beer and someone's citrusy perfume. Noah and I were crammed into a corner near the jukebox, shouting over the music about some stupid meme we'd both seen. No, I'm telling you, I said, nearly crying laughing. He really commented that on his ex's photo. With the new girl tagged. Men are a species-level problem. Noah leaned closer, grinning, his breath warm against my ear. You're just mad because you married one. I elbowed him. Shut up. From the corner of my eye, I saw Daniel at the bar, waiting for drinks. He glanced over, saw us laughing, and his face shifted. So small and subtle I would have missed it if I weren't tuned into him like a frequency. His smile flickered. His shoulders tensed. When he brought us our drinks a minute later, he handed Noah's beer a little too sharply. The foam sloshed over the rim. Whoa, Noah said, steadying it. Aggressive pour, man. Thanks though. No problem, Daniel said. His tone was light, but his eyes slid right past Noah and locked onto mine. There was a question in them. Or maybe an accusation. At the time, I told myself I was imagining it. Later, on the way home, the streetlights smeared into long yellow streaks on the damp pavement. My head buzzed pleasantly with alcohol. I leaned back against the passenger seat, scrolling through Instagram. You and Noah seemed close tonight, Daniel said. I didn't even look up. We are close. He's my best friend. Did you miss the part where he helped me move 3 times in college because my apartments were always disasters? That was 10 years ago, Em. And? He paused. And you're married now. His voice wasn't harsh. Just careful. I snorted. Married, not dead. Silence stretched between us. He was touching your waist, Daniel said finally. When you were laughing. For like, a long time. I replayed the moment, vaguely. Noah's hand at my side, steadying me when I tripped over someone's bag. His fingers resting there a beat too long. My own hand covering his as we both lost it over some inside joke about our sophomore year landlord. It wasn't a big deal, I said. You're overthinking. He exhaled through his nose. Maybe. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I looked at them and felt this brief, sharp stab of guilt. Then I buried it under irritation, because guilt meant I'd done something wrong, and I didn't want that to be true. You know you can trust me, right? I said, softening my tone. Noah's, his safe. His Noah. If he were going to make a move on me, he would have done it 12 years ago, when my bangs were a cry for help and I lived on instant ramen. Daniel's mouth twitched. Your bangs were a crime, not a cry for help. Rude, I said, smiling. When he didn't say anything, I reached over and touched his arm. Hey, look at me. He glanced over, just for a second. Enough. I love you, I said. Not Noah. Not anyone else. You. Something in his shoulders loosened. I know, he said. I do. It's just, he trailed off. Just what? I don't like how he looks at you. Like he's already imagined what it would be like if you weren't wearing that ring. The guilt stirred again, angry at being displaced. You're projecting, I said, too quickly. Not every guy is thinking about sleeping with every woman. That's gross and honestly kind of sexist, Daniel. He flinched, barely, like I'd slapped him. Okay, he said after a beat. Forget I said anything. I did. Or I told myself I did. In reality, I filed the conversation away under Daniel's insecurity and took it out to poke at when I needed to feel morally superior. I didn't see that the file was mislabeled. Over the next few months, there were other moments. Tiny things. Noah texting me at midnight, "You up?" Followed by a selfie of him holding up the world's most lopsided grilled cheese, asking if this was a cry for help or art. Me laughing in bed, screen lighting my face, while Daniel brushed his teeth in the bathroom. "Who is it?" he called. "Just Noah," I replied. Pause. "He okay?" "Yeah. Just being stupid." When Daniel came back and slid into bed next to me, the mattress dipping with his weight, I rolled over and put my phone on the nightstand screen down. Not because I had something to hide, I told myself, but because it was respectful. It was late. We were going to sleep. Except I could still feel the phantom weight of it in my hand. The unfinished conversation buzzing in my head. Sometimes Daniel reached for me, fingers brushing my hip, and I would kiss him, slow and sleepy and reassuring. Other times, I'd mumble something about being tired and he'd go still beside me, leaving an inch more space between us than there had been the night before. I noticed. I just didn't say anything. The first real red flag, one that wasn't tiny or subtle or easy to rationalize, came on a Tuesday afternoon in July. I was at my desk at work, fluorescent lights humming overhead, the scent of burnt coffee and someone's reheated fish hanging in the air. My inbox was a disaster. I was half listening to a podcast when my phone lit up with a text from Noah. "You free later?" I chewed the inside of my cheek. "Probably," I typed, then deleted it. "What's up?" His reply came almost instantly. "Need to talk. In person." My stomach dipped. That could mean anything. Job drama. Another ex resurfacing. Some new impossible woman he'd fallen for. Still, my fingers trembled slightly when I texted, "Sure. My place at 8. He replied with a thumbs up, which was unusually sarcastic for him. It did nothing to settle my nerves. That evening, I told Daniel, "Hey, Noah's coming over later. He says he needs to talk." Daniel was chopping onions for stir-fry, the sharp, spicy smell making my eyes water. His hand paused mid-slice. "Just you and him?" he asked. "Yes," I said, like it was obvious. He's not going to pour his heart out about whatever this is in front of an audience. He resumed chopping, slower. "I could stay out of the way. I don't mind." I sighed. "Daniel, you hate serious emotional talks. You literally call them the feelings Olympics. You'd be miserable." He huffed a faint laugh. "Fair." I walked over and bumped my shoulder into his. "We'll probably just have a drink and complain about life. Nothing exciting." He didn't look at me. "It's not excitement I'm worried about." I chose not to unpack that, because dinner smelled good and his hand looked solid and familiar on the knife handle and I didn't want to ruin that with an argument. "I'll be in the bedroom if you need me," he said later, after Noah arrived. Noah swept in with his usual chaotic energy, arms full of beer and a bag of chips he obviously bought 5 minutes ago. He hugged me like he always did, arms wrapping around my waist, chin digging into my shoulder. "You look like a person who has seen emails," he muttered into my hair. "That's because I have," I replied. I was acutely aware of the fact that Daniel could probably see us from the hallway. We settled on the couch, several inches apart at first. There was a movie playing in the background, something mindless and loud. Halfway through, somewhere between Noah's second beer and my third, the conversation turned more serious. "I think I'm broken," Noah said, staring at the label of his bottle, picking at the edge. "You're not broken," I said automatically. He snorted. "You say that like you've got a warranty on me or something." "Do I?" I asked, nudging his knee with mine. Because I'd like a refund. He laughed, but it faded quickly. I'm serious, Em, he said. Every time I get close to someone, I sabotage it. I pick fights, I pull away, I convince myself they're going to leave anyway, so I might as well beat them to it. His voice was cracked at the edges. Vulnerable. I softened. You've had crap examples, I said gently. Your dad bailed. Your mom's relationships were a parade of disasters. Of course you're scared. That doesn't make you broken. His eyes flicked to mine, searching. How did you do it? He asked quietly. Trusting Daniel. The question lodged under my ribs. Images flashed. Daniel making me coffee every morning. Daniel reading the instructions for building our IKEA bed frame out loud in a terrible fake British accent. Daniel's hand on the small of my back at my grandmother's funeral, holding me up when my knees wanted to give. I don't know, I said. One day I just believed him. That he wasn't going anywhere. And then I kept choosing to believe him over and over. Even when it was scary. Noah swallowed. Must be nice. It is, I said. Then, because there was a knot in my throat, I added, you'll find someone you feel that way about too. He gave me this look then. Something raw and open that I couldn't quite decipher. I already did, he said. It was almost a whisper. The air changed. My pulse surged in my ears. I knew, even before he shifted closer, who he meant. My traitorous heart knew. It had always known, in the spaces between our jokes and our almosts, and the way I sometimes felt more seen in a 5-minute text exchange with him than in a whole evening beside my husband. I should have shut it down. I should have laughed and smacked his shoulder and said, you idiot, go text that girl from the coffee shop. Instead, I froze. He leaned in, slow, giving me time to move away. His hand came up, knuckles whispering over my jaw. His lips brushed mine, soft, hesitant, tasting like beer and salt. For one suspended second, I kissed him back. A lifetime seemed to fit into that tiny moment. All the hypothetical roads. The what ifs I'd carefully locked away. Then I jerked back like I'd been burned. No, I said, heart hammering. No, we can't. Noah's face crumpled. I'm sorry, he said immediately. Shit. I'm so sorry. I didn't, it's just, you, and I've been. I shot to my feet, pacing. The room felt too small. Forget it, I said, voice high and thin. We're drunk. This is stupid. You don't mean it. He stared at me, eyes shining. I do. Don't, I snapped. Just, don't. I'm married, Noah. To a man who trusts me. Who trusts you? He flinched. Shame washed through me, hot and suffocating. I grabbed onto it, used it as a shield. You should go, I said, refusing to look at him. We'll pretend this never happened, okay? We'll chalk it up to bad alcohol and worse decisions and just go. When the door closed behind him, the sound echoed in the quiet apartment. I stood there, shaking, staring at the handle like it might turn back on its own. Daniel stepped out from the hallway a second later, hair mussed, sleep shirt wrinkled. His eyes scrubbed over my face, my flushed cheeks, my wild breathing. Everything okay? He asked softly. I flinched like he'd caught me with blood on my hands. Yeah, I lied, forcing my voice steady. He's just going through stuff. It got intense. It's fine. Daniel hesitated, but didn't push. He just walked over and wrapped his arms around me. You know I trust you, right? He murmured into my hair. The words felt like acid on my skin. I hugged him back, too tight, like I could squeeze the guilt out of my pores. I know, I whispered. That night, while he slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling in the dark and made a deal with myself. It didn't count. I'd stopped it. 1 second. One mistake. One almost. If I never let it happen again, if I never told him, if I was perfect from this moment forward, it could be like it hadn't happened. I deleted Noah's last text thread, the one with his "you free later," and my eager yes. Just to be safe. Just so nothing could be misinterpreted. After that night, I tried to be a better wife. I started cooking more. asking about Daniel's day and actually listening, not just waiting for my turn to talk. I planned a weekend away just for us, in a little cabin 2 hours out of the city. We hiked, we drank wine on the deck, we had clumsy, laughing sex on a couch that squeaked every time either of us moved. I told myself the cabin trip meant something. That it reset us. That the almost kiss with Noah had been a catalyst, a reminder of what I stood to lose. Sometimes, self-delusion looks a lot like optimism. Noah and I didn't see each other for weeks. I let his messages pile up. Hey, can we talk? And I'm sorry, please don't freeze me out and I miss my friend. I responded with short, bland replies. Busy. Work is crazy. Hope you're okay. Each time I hit send, my chest ached. But I was doing the right thing, I told myself. I was drawing a boundary. Daniel would be proud, if he knew. He didn't know everything, though. He didn't know about the one night it rained so hard the windows rattled and I sat in the kitchen alone, heart thudding, staring at my phone, hovering over Noah's name. He didn't know that my thumb actually tapped the call button before I chickened out and tossed the phone across the table like it had shocked me. Instead of calling, I poured myself another glass of wine and stared at the front door, willing it to open. Wishing Daniel would come home early, just this once, like he used to. He didn't. His job had changed over the last few months. New boss, new responsibilities, later nights. At least, that's what he told me. At first, I believed him without question. Then the little things started. His phone, always face down. The texts he'd type, then clear when I walked into the room. The way he started mentioning a coworker named Hannah more often. At first, just in passing. She's the new project manager. She's really on top of things. Then, more specific. Hannah says the client might push the deadline. He told me over dinner one night, poking at his roasted potatoes. She's going to try to talk him down. That's nice of her, I said, glancing up from my plate. He nodded. Yeah, she's really helpful. Smart. The way he said it was casual. Too casual. Is she new? I asked. Sort of, he said. She transferred from the Chicago office. I didn't think much of it then. We all talked about our co-workers. I'd mentioned my own team dozens of times. He knew their names, their quirks. But then, a week later, he dropped her name again. Hannah and I stayed late going over the numbers. Hannah brought donuts for the team. Hannah's going through a breakup. It's been rough at the office. She cried in the restroom and I walked in by accident. So awkward. Each mention was a loose thread. Individually harmless. Together, they formed a pattern I tried very hard not to look at too closely. Because if I did, I would have to admit that my stomach twisted every time her name came up. Jealousy is ugly, especially when you're already standing on shaky moral ground. I was the one who'd let another man's lips touch mine. I was the one who'd felt that electric jolt of not my husband and not immediately recoiled. Who was I to side-eye a coworker whose only crime, as far as I knew, was being nice and competent and slightly too present in my husband's stories? Still. One evening, about a month after the cabin trip, Daniel came home later than usual. The clock read 10:42. Rain traced slow lines down the window. I'd been half dozing on the couch, a blanket over my legs, Netflix asking if I was still watching for the second time. Long day. I asked as he came in, shaking water off his jacket. Yeah, he said. He didn't look at me. You could have texted, I said. It came out sharper than I intended. I was starting to think you were dead in a ditch. He huffed a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Sorry. My phone died in a meeting. Didn't have my charger. I glanced at the counter. His charger sat there, coiled neatly, where it always did. Right, I said slowly. He followed my gaze, then looked away quickly. I borrowed one for a minute, but it was chaos. We were trying to get the numbers sorted and he cut himself off. It doesn't matter. I should have found a way to let you know. I'm sorry. He crossed the room and kissed the top of my head. His lips were cool from the rain. I inhaled, trying to find some unfamiliar perfume, some stray scent that wasn't his soap or the office coffee. I smelled nothing. Was Hannah there? I asked. His body stiffened, just slightly. Why? He asked. I shrugged, forcing casual. You talk about her a lot. Just curious. He pulled back, studying my face. Yeah, he said, after a second. She was there. So were 3 other people. We were all working late. Okay, I said. I wanted to believe him. I wanted a world where both of us were overthinking everything and still fundamentally good. But the part of me that had rationalized my own almost betrayal recognized the tone in his voice. The way truth and omission can braid together so tightly they feel indistinguishable. That night, when he fell asleep quickly beside me, breathing deep and even, I lay awake and stared at the faint crack in the ceiling above us. Are we okay? I whispered into the dark, not sure who I was asking. No answer came. The night of the video. 2 weeks before Daniel stood in our kitchen with a suitcase and a shattered look in his eyes, I agreed to meet Noah for a drink. It was raining, the same heavy, insistent kind that had kept me company on the couch all those weeks ago. The city was a blur of red taillights and reflected neon as I watched from the Uber window, my stomach twisting. I'd avoided this for months. Avoided him. Avoided the conversation we needed to have. But some part of me knew avoidance isn't the same thing as repair. It's just a slower form of damage. Noah had texted earlier that day. Please. 1 drink. I just want my friend back. I'd stared at the message for a long time, Daniel's latest running late, don't wait up text sitting just above it. Fine, I typed back. 1 drink. Bar on 5th. Now, as I walked into the dimly lit space, the smell of yeast and old wood wrapping around me, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. Noah was already there, tucked into a corner booth by the window. The street outside streamed with rain, water running down the glass in silver lines. He looked up as I approached, his face breaking into a mix of relief and guilt. Hey, he said, standing up. Hey, I echoed. We did an awkward half-hug, my cheek brushing his shoulder, his hand hovering at my back like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to touch me. We Saturday. For a few minutes, it was almost easy. We talked about work, about Maya's never-ending relationship drama, about some weird trend on TikTok that made both of us feel ancient. Then the conversation stretched and thinned, like a rubber band pulled too far. Noah took a breath. I'm sorry, he said. About that night. I stared at the condensation on my glass. We don't have to. I need to, he interrupted. I crossed a line. Big time. You told me where your boundary was and I bulldozed right over it. That's not who I want to be. Not with you. His voice cracked on the last word. Guilt and something warmer tangled in my chest. I kissed you back, I said quietly. For a second. That's on me. He shook his head. You were confused. You were. I'm not a child, Noah, I snapped. I know what I was doing. He recoiled slightly. Okay. I don't want you to carry all of it, that's all. I sighed, dragging a hand through my hair. Look. We both screwed up. It doesn't have to mean anything. His eyes searched mine, like he was trying to find the lie. It meant something to me, he said. My heart thudded. I'm married, I said, the words feeling like a talisman, a shield I'd already cracked once. I chose Daniel. A muscle jumped in Noah's jaw. He nodded slowly. Yeah, he said. I know. We sat in silence for a minute, the hum of the bar wrapping around us. Someone laughed loudly near the pool table. A song I recognized drifted through the speakers. I miss you, he said, so softly I almost didn't hear it. The thing is, I missed him too. I missed the version of myself I was with him, funny and quick and a little bit reckless. I missed the ease, the shorthand. The history. I miss you, I admitted. But we have to figure out how to do this without all the other stuff. He nodded. Friends. Friends, I echoed. We clinked our glasses, a mockery of a toast. As the evening went on, the knot between us loosened, just a little. He told a ridiculous story about his new intern. I told him about my boss's obsession with color-coded spreadsheets. We laughed too loud. It felt dangerously close to normal. At one point, He reached across the table for my hand when I made some self-deprecating comment about messing up a campaign. "Hey," he said. "You're good at what you do. Don't talk about my friend like that." His thumb brushed my knuckles. I didn't pull away. Not immediately. Just a second. Just long enough for someone with a phone at the right angle, in the right place, to see two people in a corner booth, their heads bent close, their fingers intertwined. Later, when the bartender yelled last call, we paid and slid out of the booth. I stumbled a little. The floor was slick from people tracking in rainwater. Noah's hand shot out to steady me, landing on my waist. I laughed, breathless, fingers grabbing at his shirt. We stood too close. The streetlight outside shone through the wet glass, haloing us in a soft, forgiving glow. From the right angle, it probably looked romantic. From the outside, people rarely see the guilt and the almosts and the boundaries being clawed back from the edge. They see bodies leaning toward each other. Touch where there maybe shouldn't be touch. We said goodbye on the sidewalk, under his umbrella. He bent his head, his lips landing on my forehead, not my mouth. A bittersweet concession. "Good night, Em," he said. "Good night," I whispered. I went home feeling like I'd walked along the edge of something and somehow not fallen. I didn't know, then, that our entire conversation had an unintended audience. The twist. Back in the kitchen, with the broken mug at my feet and Daniel halfway out the door, that night at the bar replayed on loop in my head. Every look. Every touch. Every moment I'd chosen not to yank myself away because it was easier not to. "Please," I said, stepping toward him. "If you saw something, let me explain." He turned back slowly, shoulders squared like he was bracing for impact. "Explain what?" he asked. "Explain why you told me I was paranoid while you were doing whatever the hell that was behind my back." "It wasn't like that," I said, desperation rising, making my voice shrill. "We were talking. We were trying to fix things. I told him no. I told him I chose you." "And that required, what, exactly?" he asked, jaw tight. "Holding hands in a dark corner. Letting him touch you like that. Letting him kiss you." "He didn't kiss me," I blurted. Then I winced, because that was only technically true. Daniel barked out a mirthless laugh. "You really want to argue semantics right now?" I stopped it, I insisted. The first time, I stopped it. I told him it couldn't happen again. That night at the bar, we were trying to be friends. That's it. If someone filmed us at a weird angle, if it looked bad, that doesn't mean. He pulled his phone out of his pocket and tapped at the screen. A second later, he held it up. "Don't," I whispered. He hit play. The video was grainy, the perspective slightly elevated, probably from someone at the bar, leaning against the wall with their phone angled just so. The lighting was dim, colors washed out. But it was undeniably us. Me, leaning across the table, my hand reaching for Noah's. Me, laughing, head tipped back, his hand on my waist as I slid into the booth. Me, on the sidewalk under the umbrella, his lips pressing to my forehead while my fingers curled into his shirt like I didn't want to let go. The people around us were blurred into indistinct shapes. There was no audio. But there didn't need to be. The story was clear enough. The worst part was my face. I didn't look conflicted. I looked happy. I looked like a woman falling for someone who wasn't her husband. "I know what it looks like," I whispered, throat aching. "But it's not as simple as." "It's exactly as simple as this," he cut in, voice shaking. "You lied to me." "I never lied," I protested. I didn't tell you everything." "Oh, well," he said, something bitter and ugly twisting his mouth. "As long as the technicalities check out." His volume wasn't loud, but there was a dangerous, glassy edge to it. "I was trying to protect you," I said. The words sounded pathetic as soon as they left my mouth. Protect us. It was a mistake, and I was handling it, and I didn't want you to be hurt over something that wasn't going to happen again. "You weren't protecting me," he said coldly. "You were protecting yourself. You didn't want to deal with the consequences of telling me. So you let me keep feeling crazy. You made jokes about how jealous I was, how insecure." His eyes were bright now, moisture gathering in the corners. You made me doubt my own instincts, he said. My own perception. Every time something felt off, you told me I was imagining it. That is betrayal, Emma. It's not just about lips or hands or hotel rooms. It's about this. He jabbed a finger toward his temple. It's about making someone doubt their own mind. I opened my mouth to argue, to say he was exaggerating. But the words died, because deep down, under all the defensiveness and denial, I knew he was right. I'm sorry, I whispered. He laughed again, this awful, broken sound. You're sorry because I found out. No, I said, shaking my head hard enough to make my vision swim. No, I've been sorry for months. I have. I've been trying to. Trying to what? He demanded. Trying to be better without actually being honest. Trying to just fix it quietly, like a kid taping a broken vase and hoping their parents won't notice. He took a step toward me, then stopped himself, like he was afraid of what he might say if he got too close. You don't get to decide what hurts me, Emma, he said quietly. You don't get to curate my pain. Silence fell between us, heavy and suffocating. I groped for something, anything, that could anchor us. What about you? I burst out, grasping at straws. You've been working late with Hannah for months. You've been distant, secretive. Your phone, the way you talk about her. He stared at me, eyebrows lifting in disbelief. Are you really trying to deflect right now? I'm not, I said. I need to know if I'm the only one who messed up. His expression shifted, flickered. He looked away. My heart lurched. Daniel, I said slowly. Did something happen with her? He scrubbed a hand over his face. This isn't about. Did something happen with her? I repeated, louder. He hesitated. Then, quietly, no. Relief and skepticism warred in my chest. Nothing happened, he continued. Not like what happened with you and Noah. There were no kisses. No secret late-night drinks. He met my gaze. But I thought about it. The room tilted. What do you mean? I asked, even though I already knew. He let out a shaky breath. I liked the attention, he said. I liked having someone at work who looked at me like I was impressive, competent, not some jealous, overreacting husband. He stared at a point on the wall, his voice distant. One night, we stayed late. Everyone else had gone home. She was talking about her breakup, about feeling unwanted. She put her hand on my arm and I thought, if I leaned in right now, she wouldn't stop me. He looked back at me, eyes full of self-disgust. I didn't, he said. I packed up my stuff and I walked out. I came home and I lay next to you in bed and I felt like a stranger in my own life. Tears slid hot down my cheeks. I told myself I'd never let it get that far again, he said. That I'd set boundaries. That I'd fix us. But then I started noticing things with you and Noah, and every time I tried to talk to you, you made me feel like I was the problem. Like my discomfort was a flaw I needed to fix. He swallowed. So I stopped trying, he said. And I started planning. Planning what? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. He looked at the suitcase by the door. This, he said simply. That was before the video. My voice came out small. Yeah, he said. I'd already talked to a lawyer. I'd already looked at apartments. He laughed bitterly. The video just confirmed what I'd been feeling. It gave me something concrete to point to and say, see? I'm not crazy. I'm not making this up. The word lawyer slammed into me like a physical blow. You were going to leave me, I whispered, the reality of it sinking in. Not as a threat, not in heat of the moment anger, but as a long, deliberate process. Paperwork. Plans. He said. I am. My legs felt weak. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. How did you even get the video? I asked, clinging to the practical details because the emotional ones were too big, too jagged. He hesitated. Does it matter? Yes, I said. It matters. He sighed, rubbing his temple. Fine. A number I didn't recognize texted it to me. No name. Just the video and a message. Thought you should see this. My stomach turned. Who? I don't know, he said. I tried calling back. It was disconnected. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then another possibility slid into my mind, unwelcome and obvious. Noah, I said. Daniel blinked. What? It had to be Noah, I said, the pieces clicking together with a horrible, inevitable logic. Who else would have filmed us and known to send it to you? He was the one who wanted me to choose. He's the one who said. I broke off, remembering the look on Noah's face that night he confessed. I already did. Send your husband you cozying up to another man. Daniel finished. Incredulous. Why would he do that? Guilt. Punishment. A twisted form of honesty. I don't know, I whispered. Maybe he thought exposing it would push me. Force me to choose him or you. Or maybe he was drunk and angry and wanted to blow things up. The realization settled heavily in my chest. The betrayal was layered. My betrayal of Daniel, Noah's betrayal of me, my betrayal of my own integrity. A web of half-truths and misdirected pain. Daniel shook his head slowly. I don't care who sent it, he said. I care that they had something to send. He picked up the suitcase handle again. So that's it? I asked, voice cracking. You're just leaving. What else is there? He asked softly. You're not the same person I thought you were. Maybe I'm not either, anymore. We broke something we can't pretend to unbreak. I can fix it, I said, desperation clawing its way out. We can go to therapy. We can set rules. I'll cut Noah off completely. I'll tell you everything, I swear, no more secrets, just. Why now? He asked, stopping me short. Why are you willing to do all that now? Because you're afraid of losing me, he said. Not because you're suddenly horrified by what you did. If I hadn't seen the video, would you have told me about any of it? The silence that followed was answer enough. He nodded, as if that was the final piece he'd needed. I loved you, he said. I still do, in some stubborn, stupid way. But I don't trust you. And I don't trust myself to remember any of this. So yeah, I'm leaving. He stepped into the hallway, pulling the suitcase behind him. Daniel, wait, I choked out. He paused, but didn't turn around. You said the beginning was Noah, I said. But that's not true. The beginning was us. Both of us. Not talking. Not listening. Letting other people fill the spaces we left empty. He closed his eyes briefly. Maybe, he said. But Noah is where I draw the line. He walked away. The door clicked shut behind him. The sound was quiet. Final. Time after someone leaves doesn't move in straight lines. It stutters. It loops. Days blur together. Some last forever. Others disappear before you can catch your breath. I don't know how long I stood in the kitchen after Daniel left. Long enough for the coffee to dry in streaks on the counter. Long enough for my feet to start hurting from the small shards of ceramic I hadn't bothered to sweep up yet. Eventually, my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen, expecting Daniel's name, some last-minute reprieve. It wasn't his. It was Noah. I stared at the preview for a long time before opening it. I'm guessing he saw it. The message read. I'm so sorry, Em. My heart pounded. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Did you film us? I typed. Did you send it to him? The 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Then vanished. Then appeared again. Finally. Yes. The room swayed. Why? I sent. This time, the reply took longer. Because I couldn't keep watching you lie to him, he wrote. And I couldn't keep being your half measure. Your emotional backup. It was killing me. And it wasn't fair to him. Or to you. I thought, if he knew, something would have to change. I let out a hollow laugh. Something had changed, all right. You broke my marriage, I wrote, my hands shaking. Another pause. Then, I didn't break it, Em. It was already breaking. I just stopped pretending not to see it. Rage flared, hot and bright. You had no right, I typed. None. You're right, he replied. Then, a moment later, I know you'll probably never speak to me again. I hope someday you see that I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to stop all of us from drowning. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I deleted the entire thread. I didn't block him. Not yet. The part of me that still clung to the ghost of our old friendship couldn't bear to make it that final. Instead, I set the phone down and finally moved. I got the broom. I swept up the shards of the broken mug, the little splinters like teeth. As I worked, tears dripped off my chin, splattering the floor. When the kitchen was clean, I slid down the cabinet door until I was sitting on the ground, knees pulled up to my chest, arms wrapped around them. My wedding photo on the wall watched me silently. In it, Daniel and I were laughing at some joke the photographer had made, cheeks flushed, eyes bright. My bouquet was slightly crooked. His tie was a little off-center. Imperfect and perfect all at once. I remembered the way he'd squeezed my hand that day, backstage, just before we walked out. You sure? He'd whispered. Yes, I'd said, without a flicker of doubt. You? Definitely, he'd replied. We had meant it. We had meant every promise we made. We just hadn't known how hard it would be to keep them when life got small and routines got heavy and other people's attention started to feel like oxygen. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from an unknown number. Hi Emma. This is Hannah. I'm sorry to bother you, but I thought you should know Daniel took the day off work today. He looked really upset yesterday. I hope he's okay. I stared at the text, shock cutting through the haze. I typed, "This is Emma. How did you get my number?" She replied quickly. "Daniel's emergency contact form," she wrote. "I know it's probably weird that I'm reaching out. He's a good guy. I didn't want him to go through whatever this is alone." My chest tightened. "Thank you," I wrote. Processing some things. We both are. If I'm overstepping, I'm sorry, she sent back. I just wanted to say, he talks about you a lot. In a good way. It's always been clear he loves you. I didn't know whether to laugh or sob. He used to, I wrote, fingers trembling. I don't know if that's enough anymore. Love is rarely the problem. It's everything we build, or fail to build, around it. I stared at the conversation for a long time. Then, on impulse, I typed, "Did anything ever happen between you and him?" There was a long pause. I imagined her sitting in some apartment across town, phone in hand, wondering how honest to be. "No," she replied finally. "He's been nothing but respectful. I might have wanted more, at one point. But he didn't cross that line." My throat burned. "Thank you for telling me," I wrote. "Anytime," she responded. "For what it's worth, I hope you two figure things out. But if you don't, it won't be because he didn't love you." I set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. In the quiet that followed, a strange calm settled over me. Daniel hadn't cheated on me. Not technically. Emotionally, he'd drifted. He'd let someone else's admiration patch over the cracks my dismissal had made. But he'd stopped himself at the edge and walked away. I hadn't. I'd stepped one foot over the line and called it an almost, a mistake I could erase through sheer force of will. Maybe that was the real twist. Not that he'd been unfaithful in return. But that he hadn't. That in the ledger of our betrayals, mine was the one inked in darker. The pregnancy test. A week later, sitting on the edge of the bathtub, staring at two pink lines on a little plastic stick, I realized how many ways a life can split. I hadn't meant to buy the test. It had been an impulse, a last-second grab at the pharmacy when the cashier was already scanning my migraine meds and the bag of frozen peas I definitely didn't need. My period was only a few days late. Stress can do that. Heartbreak can twist your body into all sorts of strange rhythms. But some quiet, stubborn part of me had whispered, "Just check. Just so you know." Now I knew. The lines were unmistakable. My first instinct was to call Daniel. My second was to throw the test in the trash and pretend I'd never taken it. I sat there, trembling, the tile cold under my bare feet. Telling him would feel like a manipulation. A last desperate card to play. At the same time, not telling him would be another betrayal. A big one. I pictured his face when he left, the way his eyes had gone flat with exhaustion and hurt. I pictured the way his hand always rested absently on my belly when we talked about someday. About little shoes and bedtime stories and who they might look like. He had a right to know. Someday. Maybe not today, when the air between us was still thick with smoke from the explosion that had been our marriage imploding. I took a deep breath. Then another. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I called a therapist. The woman who answered had a warm voice. She asked for my name, my insurance information, the usual details. When she asked what I was calling about, I hesitated. My husband left, I said finally. Because I betrayed him. And I'm pregnant. And I don't know how to be a person in my own life right now. There was a pause on the line. Okay, she said gently. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see when we can get you in. The road ahead. I didn't text Daniel about the baby that day. Or the next. Instead, I sat down at the kitchen table, the same place I'd once laughed at his jealousy, tossed out teasing comments that hit deeper than I'd intended, and I started to write. Not to him. To myself. I wrote down everything. The night with Noah. The almost. The bar. The jokes. The omissions. Every moment where I'd chosen the easier version of the truth over the harder one. Seeing it all laid out in ink was sobering. It looked worse than it had felt in my head, when each choice had been wrapped in justification and heat-of-the-moment excuses. It looked like a pattern. Of avoidance. Of cowardice. Of using humor as a shield every time Daniel tried to show me his vulnerable underbelly. At the very top of the page, I wrote, I'm not the victim here. It wasn't entirely true. No one comes out of something like this unhurt, wronged. Daniel had made his own mistakes. He'd withdrawn. He'd planned his escape instead of fighting for us, instead of making his hurt impossible to ignore. He'd let resentment build silently, a pressure cooker with no release valve. Noah had betrayed me too, in his way. Filming me without my knowledge. Sending the video to my husband when he knew exactly how much it would blow up my life. Denying me the chance to confess on my own terms, to face my own choices. But it was important, I realized, not to use their wrongs as camouflage for my own. We were all villains and victims, in different scenes. A week after the test, I finally texted Daniel. Can we talk? I wrote. Not about getting back together. About logistics. And something else important. It took him a full day to respond. Okay, he wrote. Tomorrow. Coffee shop on Elm at 11. My hands shook as I typed, I'll be there. The next morning, the air outside was crisp, the sky an indifferent blue. My stomach churned so hard I wasn't sure if it was nerves or the pregnancy or both. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a white ceramic mug in his hands. He looked tired. Older. Like the last week had added years. Hi, I said, hovering by the chair opposite him. Hi, he replied. We Saturday. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I'm not here to beg you to come back, I said finally. I know that's not realistic right now. Maybe ever. He nodded, eyes guarded. I'm here because there are things I need to say, I continued. And because there's something you deserve to know. I told him about therapy. About the pages I'd filled. About the sentence at the top. I'm not the victim here. His mouth twitched. I don't want you to flog yourself forever, he said quietly. I was angry. I still am. But you're not a monster. I'm not a monster, I agreed. But I was selfish. And cowardly. And I need to own that. Not just so you'll forgive me. For me. For our kid. His head snapped up. Our what? The coffee shop noise dimmed around us. The hiss of the espresso machine. The low murmur of other conversations. I swallowed. I'm pregnant, I said. I found out last week. For a second, his face was blank. Then a dozen emotions flickered across it in rapid succession. Shock, confusion, a flash of something almost like joy, quickly buried under dread. How far? He asked. 6 weeks, maybe, I said. I'm going to the doctor next week to be sure. He let out a long breath. Is it? He stopped himself. Yes, I said immediately, heat rising in my cheeks. It's yours. I have not. I haven't slept with anyone else. Not Noah. Not anyone. He closed his eyes briefly, as if in relief. Or pain. Or both. Okay, he said. Okay. I'm not telling you this to trap you, I said. Or to force you to come back. I know that's probably what it sounds like, but you deserve to know. You deserve to be part of this, if you want. Or to walk away now, if you don't. He stared at me, incredulous. Walk away from my kid. You left your wife, I pointed out gently. His jaw clenched. That's different. I know, I said. That's why I'm not making any assumptions. I'm not going to paint you as a villain if you need time. I'm giving you the truth. All of it. Finally. Silence stretched. A couple at the next table laughed at something on a phone. The barista called a name. Somewhere outside, a car horn blared. I don't know how to do this, he said eventually. Any of it. I don't know how to be in the same room as you without seeing that video in my head. I don't know how to picture myself as a dad and not think about every way we could screw this up. I don't either, I said. But we don't have to figure it all out today. Right now, all I'm asking is, do you want to be involved? His answer was immediate. Yes. Something in my chest loosened. Okay, I said, exhaling shakily. We can talk about logistics later. Parenting schedules. Whatever. For now, I just wanted you to know. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not just for the almost. For all of it. For making you doubt your instincts. For laughing off your pain. You didn't imagine any of it. You were right. A tear slid down his cheek. I wish I wasn't, he whispered. Me too, I said. We sat there for a while, not touching, not making any big promises. Just two people in the ruins of what they'd built, trying to map out some kind of path through the rubble. As we left, walking out into the chilly sunlight, he paused. I don't know if I can ever be your husband again, he said, voice low. But I will be there for this baby. I'll try not to hate you forever. It was a brutal kindness. Brutal, because he didn't soften it with platitudes. Kind, because it was honest. I'll try to earn that, I said. We parted ways on the sidewalk. He turned left. I turned right. For the first time since he'd left, I didn't feel like the world was ending. It was just changing. Slowly. Painfully. Maybe someday, when the anger had scabbed over and the grief had settled into something less sharp, we could sit together at a school play or a birthday party and talk about weather and homework and the absurdity of PTA drama. Maybe he'd have someone new by then. Someone who made him feel safe and wanted and never crazy. Maybe I would, too. Or maybe I wouldn't trust myself with that kind of power again. As I walked home, leaves crunching under my shoes, I took out my phone. I scrolled past Noah's name. Past the empty thread with Hannah. I opened a blank note and wrote, in big letters, tell the truth, even when it costs you. Then, after a long moment, I added, especially when it costs you. Because that was the twist I hadn't seen coming. Not the baby. Not the video. Not the fact that Daniel, for all his hurt and his planning, had stopped himself on the edge of a different betrayal and walked away. The twist was this. I had thought the worst thing that could happen was losing him. But now I understood there was something worse. Losing myself. The version of me who could look in a mirror and know she hadn't built her life on half-truths and almosts and conveniently forgotten lines. As the wind picked up, tugging at my hair, I squared my shoulders. There would be more hard conversations. With Daniel. With my family. Maybe even, someday, with a child who would want to know why their parents didn't live in the same house. I couldn't promise I'd never mess up again. But I could promise this, I wouldn't hide from my own reflection anymore. When my phone buzzed again, I didn't have to look to know who it was. Noah, are you okay? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, deliberately, I opened the thread. My fingers hovered. Finally, I typed, "I'm not. But I will be. Please don't contact me again. This isn't about punishing you. It's about me finally learning where the line is." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then, "I understand. I'm sorry, M. Truly. I hope one day you're happy." I read it once. Then I blocked his number. As I slid my phone back into my pocket, the weight of it felt different. Lighter. Not because everything was fixed. Because, for the first time in a long time, the story I was telling matched the one I was living. And that, I realized, was its own kind of beginning.